For the barbell bench press, you're going to need a bench and you're going to need a barbell. I'm doing it in the squat rack, but at your gym you might have a bench only station, which is going to look like just these posts and you're not going to be in a cage. Either way, it's fine. When you're setting up the bench press in the J hooks, these things that the bar sits in are called J hooks, you want to make sure you put the bar at the right height. So you don't want the bar so high that you have to reach to take it out of the rack, but you also don't want it so low that you actually have to bench the bar out of the rack. So when I go over the setup, you'll see exactly what I mean. And I've already set this bar up at the right height, but that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is when you are bench pressing by yourself, do not put collars on the end of the bar after you put your weight. The reason is if you get stuck with the bar in your chest and you need to get the weight off, you want to be able to tip the bar to one side, have the weight fall off, and then tip the bar to the other side and have the weight fall off. If you can bench with a spotter, that's the best case scenario because they can help you lift off and they can also help you lift the weight off your chest if you get stuck. But that's an important tip, is make sure if you're benching by yourself, do not put collars on the end of the bar. So now we're going to go over the setup to the barbell bench press. So once you've set the bar in the rack, you're going to want to lay back under the bar, and you want to make sure that the barbell is directly over your nose/eyes. So you don't want to be set up so far down on the bench here that you have to pull the bar out and travel a long distance, but you also don't want to be all the way up here and too far away from the J hooks. So the perfect spot to have the bar is going to be right over your nose or eyes, kind of right in that area there. Now, when the bar is sitting in the rack, you want to make sure that it's sitting in the front of the J hook. So these things at the bar. So now we're going to go over the setup to the barbell bench press. So once you've set the bar in the rack, you're going to want to lay back under the bar, and you want to make sure that the barbell is directly over your nose/eyes. So you don't want to be set up so far down on the bench here that you have to pull the bar out and travel a long distance, but you also don't want to be all the way up here and too far away from the J hooks. So the perfect spot to have the bar is going to be right over your nose or eyes, kind of right in that area there. Now, when the bar is sitting in the rack, you want to make sure that it's sitting in the front of the J hook. So you want there to be space between the back of the J hook and the bar here. You don't want the bar sitting like this and then have to unrack from here because you're going to have further to travel when you take the barbell out. So make sure before you start that you roll the bar forward and it's sitting in the front of the J hook there. Now, when you go to get your grip width, on most standard barbells, there's going to be a smooth part in the middle here. There's going to be a rough part in the very middle, and then on the outside is going to be more rough part here. When you get your grip width, for most people, I want you to go thumb right to the smooth like this. So my thumb is to the smooth, and that's the distance your hands are going to be on the barbell. Now it's important, this is called a false grip when your thumb is not wrapped around the bar. I don't want you to grip the barbell like that, and the reason is it's unsafe. If that thumb is not wrapped around the bar, that bar is more likely to slip out of your hand. So you're going to measure, bring your thumb to the smooth, and then wrap the thumb around the barbell. Okay, so that's going to be how you get your grip. Now remember in the intro I discussed the bar height. So this is where it's important. You could see I have a slight bend in my elbows, but the bar is not so low that I have to do a full bench press to get it out. It's also not so high that I have to reach up to get the bar and then pull it out. So make sure when you're setting up the bar that you set it up at a good height. Now, my hands are in a good position. Let's talk about the rest of my body. So my shoulders are on the bench and I'm pulling my shoulders down for my ears. So I'm not shrugged up like this. I'm going to keep them down and back in a nice position here. If you come around to the side, you could see I have a slight arch in my lower back, okay? That's totally fine. The weight of the barbell is centered over my shoulders and upper back, which is pinned into the bench, okay? So there's no weight over my back. So it's okay that you have a slight arch in your back. Everybody has a slight arch in their back. Nobody's back is perfectly straight. So you do not need to push that back flat into the bench. My butt is in contact with the bench and my feet are flat on the floor. You can raise your heels off the ground like that if you'd like, or you can go flat foot. Now, I'm a little bit taller. If you're shorter and your feet don't reach the ground or you're using a really high bench, you can stack weight plates or boxes under your feet. But your feet need to be in contact with the ground. And again, you can go heels off the ground like this if you like, or keep your heels driven into the ground. Now, I like to go feet flat on the ground. Once my feet are set, I'm pushing my knees out to the side and I'm pushing my feet into the floor almost like I'm trying to do a leg extension. So I'm actually thinking about pushing my feet like this, but I'm actually not going to go anywhere. So I'm creating tension, which is important. That tension is going to help me lift the weight up. So I'm thinking about pushing my feet this way. I'm creating tension by pushing my knees out to the side. My glutes are activated, so I'm squeezing my butt. If somebody were to try to push my knee into the side, they would not be able to because I'm creating tension and pushing out this way. Once I'm set up and I'm ready to go, I'm ready to grab the bar and I'm ready to unrack it. So now we're ready to unrack the bar. And this is where it becomes key that you set the bar at the right height. So if you remember from the intro, I really harped on setting the bar at the right height. This is where it comes into play. When you go to pull the bar out of the rack, you don't want to press it up like this. The reason is you're going to unset your shoulders from the bench and you're going to create a lot of instability, okay? To lift the most amount of weight possible, you want to be in the most stable position you can be in. So instead of pushing the barbell out of the rack like this, I want you to think about pulling the bar out of the rack. So it's a slight difference, but it's going to make a big difference in terms of maintaining your stability on the bench and maintaining that shoulder position we talked about earlier. So when you go to unrack the bar, you're going to think about pulling it out like that. Okay, so that's good. That's how I want you to do it. This would be an example of how not to do it. So hopefully you saw the difference there, that first one, I just pulled it out of the rack here. Now I'm stable, I'm in a good position, I'm ready to bench. Whereas the second time I did it, I threw my shoulders up like this. I had to move all around the bench. Now, if you could imagine, hundreds of pounds on the bar and I'm shaking all over the bench like this, that is not a good way to get set up for the bench press. So make sure you pull the bar out of the rack like this and make sure that your wrists are straight. You do not want to have your wrists back like that because that's going to start to put a lot of tension on that wrist. So make sure, again, that thumb is wrapped around the bar, your wrist, your hand is stacked right over your wrist like this. And now we are ready to bench press. Before you start the bench press, I want you to take a big breath in through your nose and brace your core like somebody's about to punch you in the stomach. From here, you're going to lower the barbell in a straight line right down to your sternum and then press straight back up. Your elbows should be tucked in at about a 45-degree angle. You can kind of play with the angle and see what feels best for you. You just don't want your elbows flared way out to the side because that's going to put a lot of strain on your shoulder. So here's what the reps should look like. When you go to re-rack the weight, make sure you put the barbell all the way into the back of the J-hooks and then drop it down. You don't want to be searching for the J hooks because you're going to be way more likely to miss one and drop it on yourself, okay? So you'll also hopefully have just finished a set of heavy, using heavy weight. You're going to be tired, so make sure you go to the back of the J hook and then drop it in like that. Also notice how when I was benching, I was coming down nice and controlled and touching lightly to my sternum. You don't want to smash that weight into your sternum and let it bounce off because you're not actually going to be training the muscles that you want to train, okay? So imagine your sternum is made of glass. You're bringing that weight down nice and gently, touching it gently, and then pressing back up in a straight line.